You are watching Just Motivation. If you trust your higher self, you can get rid of all your physical and emotional pain. Freedom comes from being able to forgive. I often ask my clients if they'd rather be right or be happy, or do you want to be happy? Based on how we see things, we all have different ideas about who was right and who was wrong, and we can all find ways to explain why we feel the way we do. We want to get even with those who hurt us, but we are the ones who keep going over the story in our own minds. It's a waste of time to hurt ourselves now because someone hurt us in the past. We want to be willing to forgive, even if we don't know how, so we can let go of the past. Giving up our hurt feelings and letting the whole thing go is what it means to forgive. When we don't forgive, we actually hurt something inside of us. No matter what kind of spiritual path you take, you will usually find that forgiveness is a big deal, but especially when there's a masculinity. When we are sick, we really need to look around and see who we need to forgive. And usually the person we think we will never forgive is the one we need to forgive the most. If you don't forgive someone, it doesn't hurt them in the least, but it makes things hard for us. The problems are not theirs, but ours. Your anger and pain come from not being able to forgive yourself, not someone else. Say that you are ready to forgive everyone completely. I'm ready to move on from the past. I am ready to forgive everyone who has ever hurt me, and I forgive myself for having harmed. If you think of someone who hurt you in any way, bless them with love and let them go. Then let go of the thought, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today. If I hadn't been able to forgive those who hurt me, I wouldn't want to punish myself now for what they did to me in the past. Not that I'm saying it would be easy, it's just that now I can look back and say, oh yeah, that really did happen. However, I no longer live there, and it doesn't mean I agree with what they did. If you feel like someone stole something from you, remember that no one can take what is rightfully yours. If it's yours, it will come back to you when it's time. If you don't get something back it wasn't meant to, you should just give up and move on with your life. To get your freedom, you need to get out of your righteous anger and stop feeling sorry for yourself. I love this phrase, which comes from Alcoholics Anonymous, because it says so much and is so accurate. When you are feeling sorry for yourself, you are this weak person who can't do anything. In order to be in charge, you want to be able to stand on your own and take care of yourself. Take a moment and, if you can, close your eyes and picture in front of you a beautiful stream of water. Put the old, hurtful experience, the pain, and the inability to forgive in the stream. See how it started to break up and move downstream until it was gone completely. This is something you can do whenever you want. We need to show kindness and help people heal. Go inside yourself and talk to the part of you that knows how to heal. You have a lot of skills. Be willing to try new things and find skills you didn't know you had. Not just to get rid of sickness, but to really heal yourself on every level. To be whole in the deepest sense of the word, you have to accept every part of yourself and every experience you've ever had, and know that it's all part of the tapestry of your life this time around. I like Emmanuel's book because it has a passage with a good message. The question for Emmanuel is, how can we go through painful situations without getting angry? And Emmanuel's answer was to see them as lessons instead of punishments. Trust life, my friends. No matter how far away life seems to take you, this trip is necessary. You have come to cross a wide terrain of experience to find out where the truth is and where your distortions are. If only we could realize that all of our so-called problems are just chances for us to grow and change, and that most of them are caused by the vibrations we have been sending out. We really only need to change how we think. Be ready to let go of your anger and be ready to forgive. Thirdly, learn how to love yourself. When was the last time you fell in love and your heart went, it was such a great feeling? It's the same as loving yourself, except that you will never leave. Once you love yourself, you'll have it for the rest of your life. So you want it to be the best possible relationship. How to love yourself, the 8th chapter. When you let go and forgive, not only does a huge weight fall off your shoulders, but for many of you who have been working on loving yourself, the door to self-love opens. And for those of you just starting out, I'll talk about some ways to learn how to love yourself. It's what I call my 10 steps. I've sent this list to thousands of people over the years. It's a great adventure to love yourself. It's like trying to learn to fly. Think about how exciting it would be if we could all fly whenever we wanted to. Let's start loving ourselves now. At some level or another, it seems like a lot of us have low self-worth. We find it very hard to love ourselves. We feel like we can't love ourselves just the way we are because we have all these false things inside of us. We usually put conditions on how much we love ourselves. Then, when we have relationships, we make loving the other person a priority. Also, based on that, we've all heard that we can't really love someone else until we love ourselves. So now that we've seen the obstacles we've put in our own way, how do we get to the next level quickly? One of the most important things you can do is to stop being so hard on yourself. I've already talked about criticism. If we tell ourselves we're fine, we'll feel better. We can easily make changes in our lives no matter what is going on. We have a lot of trouble when we do bad things to ourselves. We all affect each other. Each day is a fresh start, and we do things a little bit differently today than we did yesterday. Part of our power comes from being able to change and go with the flow of life. People who grew up in broken homes tend to be very responsible and have a habit of being very hard on themselves. They have grown up with tension and anxiety. As children of broken homes, they get the message that there must be something wrong with them. Think for a minute about how you talk to yourself when you're mad at yourself. Some of the things people say to me are stupid, bad boy, bad girl, useless, careless, dumb, ugly, worthless, sloppy, and dirty, among other things. Are these still the words you use to describe yourself now? We have a huge need to build up our own self-worth and value. We find ways to make ourselves unhappy when we don't feel good enough. We make ourselves sick or in pain. We put off doing things that would be good for us. We hurt our bodies with what we eat, drink, and do. Because we are human, we all feel insecure in some ways. Let's learn not to act like we're perfect all the time. When we feel like we have to be perfect, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and it keeps us from looking at parts of our lives that need healing. We could instead find our creative differences or individualities and love ourselves for the things that make us different from other people. Each of us has a special job to do on this planet, and when we are hard on ourselves, we hide it by saying we don't want to scare ourselves. Many of us scare ourselves with scary thoughts and make things worse than they are. We take a small problem and make it into a big monster. Always expecting the worst from life is a terrible way to live. How many of you go to sleep at night, which is the worst thing that could happen? That's like a child who thinks there are monsters under the bed and gets scared. So it makes sense that you can't sleep. When you were young, you needed your parent to come and calm you down. Now that you're an adult, you know that you can calm yourself. This is something that sick people do a lot. Often they imagine the worst or start making plans for their funerals right away. They might give the media all their power and see themselves as numbers. You might also do this in relationships. If someone doesn't call you, you might decide right away that you are completely unlovable and that you'll never have another relationship again. You feel abandoned and rejected. The same is true of your job. Someone says something to you at work, and you start to worry that you'll be fired. You give yourself these paralyzing thoughts. Remember that these scary thoughts are just negative statements. If you find yourself constantly going over a bad thought or situation in your head, find a picture of something you'd rather think about. It could be a beautiful view, a sunset, flowers, a sport, or anything else you like. Use that picture as your switch to picture whenever you find yourself getting scared. You could tell yourself, "No, I'm not going to think about that anymore. I'll think about sunsets, roses, Paris, yachts, waterfalls, or whatever you want me to think about." If you keep doing this, you'll break the habit at some point. Again, you have to work at it. Being gentle, kind, and patient with yourself is another way. I've heard, "Dear God, I pray for patience and I want it now." But being patient is a very useful skill. Most of us want things right away and feel like we have to have them right away. We're not patient enough to wait for anything. When we have to wait in lines or get stuck in traffic, we get angry. We want all the answers and all the good stuff right now, often enough, because we can't wait. We make other people's lives hard. But being impatient is a way of not wanting to learn. Being impatient is a refusal to learn. We want the answers, but we don't want to learn the lesson or take the steps that will help us grow. Our early messages shape how we live our lives. We can't change our lives until we find those messages. But keep in mind that everything is over and in the past. And if all we do is point fingers, we save it in the present. Bitter thoughts can't bring happiness, even if you think you're right, no matter what they did. If you refuse to let go of the past, you will never be free. When you forgive yourself and others, you get out of the prison of the past. When you feel stuck in a situation, or when your affirmations don't seem to work, it's usually because you need to forgive more. When you can't go with the flow of life in the present, it's usually because you're stuck in the past. It can be regret, sadness, hurt, fear, guilt, blame, anger, resentment, or even a desire for revenge. Each of these states comes from a place of not being able to forgive, of not being able to let go and be in the present moment. Only in the present can you make plans for the future. You can't be in the present if you're stuck in the past. Your thoughts and words only have power in this very moment. So you really don't want to waste your current thoughts on making your future from the trash of the past. When you blame someone else, you give up your own power because you are telling them they are to blame for how you feel. People in our lives may do things that make us feel uncomfortable, but they didn't get into our minds and make the buttons that have been pushed. Getting good at responding means taking responsibility for our own feelings and actions. In other words, we learn to choose what to do instead of just reacting. Many people find it hard to understand what it means to forgive. There's a difference between forgiving someone and taking them as they are. If you forgive someone, it doesn't mean you agree with what they did. And forgiving is something you do in your own mind. The other person has nothing to do with it. The truth about true forgiveness lies in letting go of the pain so we can move on. It's just a way to get rid of bad energy. Also, forgiving someone doesn't mean letting the hurtful things they did or said stay in your life. Sometimes when you forgive someone, you let go of your anger toward them. The most loving thing you can do is often to stand up for yourself and set healthy limits. Not just for you, but also for the other person. No matter what made you feel bitter and unable to forgive, you can get over it, stop thinking about it, and let it go. You only live in the present, and you can choose to think thoughts that make you feel good right now. You can train yourself to think thoughts that make today and tomorrow better. Know that you are building ways of thinking that will serve you well for the rest of your life. You can do this exercise with a partner or out loud if you are by yourself. Again, sit quietly with your eyes closed and say, "The person I need to forgive is X, and I forgive you for X." Do this over and over. You will have a lot to forgive some people for, but only one or two things to forgive others for. If you have a partner, tell them, "Thank you, and I'm letting you go." If you don't, imagine the person you're trying to forgive saying it to you. Do this for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Find the hurts you're still carrying in your heart, and then let them go. When you've done as much as you can for the time being, turn your attention to yourself and tell yourself out loud, "I'm sorry, and I'll keep doing this for another 5 minutes." Exercise. These are strong exercises that should be done at least once a week to get rid of any leftover junk. Some things are simple to forget. Some of them have to be chipped away at until one day they just fall apart. Here's one more good activity. Start to see yourself as a small child of 5 or 6 years old, and look deep into the eyes of this little child. See how much they want something, and remember that this little child only wants one thing from you. That's what love is. So open your arms and wrap them around this child. Take care of it with love and care. Tell the child how much you love and admire everything about them. Tell them it's okay to make mistakes while they're learning and that you'll always be there for them. Then let this little child get very small until it's just the right size to fit in your heart. Place it there. So every time you look down, this little face will be looking up at you. You can care for it a lot. Now picture your mother as a 4 or 5-year-old girl, scared and looking for love, but not sure where to look. Hold this little girl in your arms and tell her how much you love her, what you care about. Show her that she can always count on you to be there, whatever happens. And when she stops making so much noise and starts to feel safe, let her get very small, just right for getting into your heart. Put her there with your little kid and let them love on each other. Now picture your dad as a 3 or 4-year-old boy, scared, crying, and wanting to find love. See how the little boy is crying because he doesn't know what to do. You are good at making little kids feel better when they are scared, so put out your arms and hold his shaking little body while you sing soothing words to him. Let him know how much you care about him. Let him know that you'll be there for him no matter what. And when his tears are gone and you feel love and peace in his little body, let him get very small, just right for getting into your heart. Tell him to go, so those 3 little kids can show lots of love to each other. They can be loved. Your heart is so full of love that it could heal the whole world, only right now. Let's use this love to make you feel better. Start to feel a warm glow in your heart. Let this feeling of softness and gentleness start to change the way you think. Talking about yourself in the infinity of life where I am, where everything is perfect at home, changes the natural law of my life completely. I'm open to change. I'm open to changing. I decide to change the way I think. I've decided to change the way I talk about them. I find it easy to move from the old to the new and to pull back. I can forgive more than I thought I could. When I forgive, I feel free and light. I learn to love myself more and more with joy. The less anger I hold on to, the more love I have to give. When I change the way I think, I feel better. I'm learning to choose to make today a good day, and everything in my world is going well. Until next time on Just Motivation.